on. So, let's see, today's date is October 12th, 2012, and it's 10 a.m. and we're here at the Public History Center in Sanford, Florida, formerly the Student Museum. My name is Jesse Glasshoff. I'm a graduate student at the University of Central Florida, and I'm interviewing Shirley Muse. You want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Good morning. I'm Shirley Muse. I'm the collections person in charge of the collection, and I have been here for 13 years, almost 14, and love every minute of it.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and just jump right into some of these questions. So how did you come to be working at the museum? Well,
Serena Fisher, who was the director of the museum in 1999, asked me if I wanted to volunteer because we were both media specialists together. And I worked at Sanford Middle School, and I knew a lot of the old timers here and their children. And I've enjoyed it very much because I could follow it up over here and see pictures of their grandparents and etc.
So what has been your involvement in the museum? You said you were a collections manager right now.
I've been doing all the numbering of the pictures, cleaning the glass, putting them back with new labels, trying to make the print larger so that older people can read it without having to get right up to it. And then if they want a copy of it, they'll tell me, or if they can identify someone in the picture that is not identified, then they will get in touch with me, make a note, and take the number down, then we go get the picture, and then I take it apart and put the identity of that person that we didn't have. And it helps a lot. And they have identified family members, and they've identified classmates from way back when. And it's really very, very satisfying to do.
And now, is this the job you've always had here, or
yes,
have you done some?
I have done only that because I was the only one that knew about cataloging, because I'm a retired media specialist. So it's all gone into the computer, and we are getting there eventually to the end, I hope.
Okay, well, it sounds like a pretty good task, and you seem like the right person for it.
I love it. I love it.
And apparently everyone else agrees, because you're the person doing it forever. So, so what kind of people, since you've been here, what kind of people do you see visiting the museum?
Well, we have visitors to the area, especially those that may be putting their car on Amtrak to send back up north, or to pick up their car from the trains, and then they come in town and want something to do. And we are listed, I believe, at the Welcome Center and also maybe at the Amtrak station. Then we have the old timers that want to come back and look at the pictures and think about the old days. And then we have the students.
Okay.
So we
can
have
you tell me more about the students?
The students, we have mainly K through, well, we have mainly fourth graders, because we are with the fourth grade curriculum, and we teach to that. But then we have a lot of other students that come in for the events that we have, and they like to look at the pictures and go into the rooms and peruse what we have on display.
So since you've been here for quite a while, you've been volunteering for quite a while, what do you think, what would you say has changed in the museum since you've been with it?
Well, for many years there wasn't much change. But now that we have UCF as a partner, things are changing for the better. And they are just doing a tremendous job. And I can see that it will go on and prosper, and I think just get better and better. And we are changing things now that we didn't have the people to do it before, because there was only like a handful of us volunteers, maybe 5 or 6 that worked in the building, teaching the classes and all of that. But I was the only one doing the cataloging, but then there were the gardeners, and they strictly stayed out in the Pioneer Gardens. So it's been so many more people helping now, and we can see a real difference taking place now.
What was it like when you first got here?
It was very quiet. We didn't have many visitors. Well, we first had quite a few visitors for a while, but then when 4th grade would come, we were not allowed to have visitors at the same time because we couldn't have them intermingle with the students at that time. And that was school law to keep the children from wandering off or talking to strangers and everything, and we had to always abide by that.
So,
yeah.
Just to make sure I've got it clear, when you first started, the 4th graders weren't coming in, and then shortly thereafter they were?
No, they've been coming in for years.
Yeah,
I misstated that, yeah.
Oh, no, it's okay, I misunderstood.
No, but they've been coming. That's the main thing that we did was them. And then as soon as they left, it was open to the public. But then when the economy went down, we had to close down and only had 3 days and had to cut it off early. So
okay. When was that?
That was, I think, about 3 or 4 years ago. We had to start closing at 3, which didn't give you much time because the children were here till 1:30, and that was only an hour and a half. And a lot of people would have liked to have come in, but we couldn't allow them to come in till 1:30. But many a times, I will say, the directors stayed till 4 and 4:30 on their own to let those people go through and give them a tour. So I had to hand it to them.
That's pretty neat. So kind of in line with that, who would you say the exhibits are targeted towards? What are the goals of the exhibits?
I think most of the goals of the exhibits are the 4th grade curriculum, and the geography of Florida is included in that, and the history of the Native American, and also the pioneers, the early people that settled Florida. Okay. And that was the main ones, and that fit into the curriculum at that time. And I think now it's been broadened more since we have other people coming in and we've got new ideas which we needed. And I think we also have welcomed, because you get a little stagnant if you don't have some new blood brought in, and I think that's been very good.
And so would you say, since you've been here, the exhibits have generally been the same? They
have generally been the same. There's only been a few small changes. When we got something that was really pertinent to that room, then we set up a little bit of a new part to that room. But that didn't happen too often because we weren't really on the map that well. We didn't get the publicity that we've gotten now.
Can you give me an example? You said every now and then maybe one little part would change.
Well, they were talking about fossils. And one of our gardeners was very interested in fossils and came from a place in Georgia that they had a lot of them. So when he went up there, he brought back a whole lot of them, and then they put this sandbox in, and then they put the fossils into the sand so the kids could take little rakes and find them like they would out in the desert, you know, and looking for things. So that was a new one that was nice at that time. And I can't tell you exactly when it was.
That's okay. That's why we write things down. So, what do you think they're meant to teach? These exhibits, what they're directed towards the students? Well,
the Pioneer Room showed how they lived and how big a space, because we have a small pioneer log cabin. We have the cooking utensils that they used at that time in there. We have the pots that they used on the fire. We have certain clothing. We have an old pioneer time nightgown that was actually donated just about a year ago. The lady had 2 of them, and they're really tattered and torn, but we washed them and we hung them up in one in there to show that they wore long-sleeved, long nightgowns and long to the floor, you know. And then we put one also into the grandma's attic, yeah. So it was very neat because the kids didn't ever think about what they would sleep in. But it was fun, and the kids got a big kick out of it, yeah. And if they just learned a few things, you know, and then they go home and tell their parents, usually they come back with their parents and their brothers and sisters to see it on their own. Yeah. It's nice, yeah.
What, through all the exhibits you've seen all of them really since you've been here. Which exhibit was your favorite?
My favorite was Grandma's attic.
Grandma's attic.
Because I had a grandma that had an attic like that.
What was it like?
Well, the Grandma's attic, it used to have wallpaper, but they've since taken that down. And they had pictures on the wall, but they were crooked. Just like they would be if Grandma had put them up there to store them. And they got crooked and Grandma didn't go up there to clean it. They just left them hang and they were just out of the way. And then there was toys in the attic and you would know which ones were yours to play with, and they saw that. And then they showed cooking utensils that Grandma used in the kitchen area at that time. They had the irons that you used to heat on the big stoves that had coal in it, or wood burning stoves. And then they'd have the irons that they had to put the coals in the iron and do it. And they had coffee grinder there. They ground the coffee to let the children see that. They made candles also, so the kids could see how to make candles, and everybody got a turn to dip it, but we have to be careful of that, and you might get burnt, so we had to take that out, much to our discouragement, but sometimes you have to do that for safety problems, yeah. But it was just fascinating because there were instruments that were hung from the ceiling on wires just to keep them out of the way, you know, because Grandma stored all that stuff up in the attic, you know. But it looked like a real Grandma's attic, yeah. And everybody, I think the majority of people liked that one. It brought back a lot of memories. You had the old-fashioned toys, the ones that were made of iron, and they were very heavy, but the kids still played with them, you know. But we had a little bit of everything, and we always let them play with the toys. We had the old wooden toys that you can, I forget what they were, but they had this pieces of wood, and it was called something. Cannot remember what it was. But you always had to get it back together, and it clicked. It was really neat, and the kids had never seen something like that. I should have brought one with me. Yeah, but I didn't think about it. Yeah.
Let's say, thinking about the exhibits and the changes through time, which parts of the museum do you think had the most impact on the children that have visited, the K through 12 children?
I think the geography room, because the map of Florida is large enough they can walk on. And then they have to learn the names of the cities and where they're located, and then they have kind of like tops. There's holes driven in the actual map, and you have to take the top that has the name written on it. Pensacola, they've learned that it went up in the Panhandle. Tallahassee was up north part. And then there was Miami, and there was Orlando, and they had to put the right one, the answer, in that position. And they loved doing that because it was big enough they could walk around it and look, you know, and then actually put that in themselves, like they named it. And they felt real good about that in 4th grade. And then I think their second best was the Grandma's attic. They liked the interaction because they always gave them time to play with the toys and pick them up and touch things. Because that's how we believe that you should be able to touch things.
Mm-hmm. So, aside from the children that have visited, how do you think, how do you see that the museum has had the most impact on the larger community?
Well, I think Sanford citizens that have been here for years love to come back and reminisce. And they see the houses that they used to walk by on their way to school, because they're still here in the pictures the same. A lot of them in Sanford have been restored, and that's just a beautiful thing. But they can come back, and then they find people on there that they haven't seen in a long time, and it brings back memories. And if you get 2 or 3 of them from the same class, they start talking, and they really enjoy it. And they end up spending several hours here many a times, particularly the older people. Because they are just so excited to be back in their element of time, you know. Yeah. And that toy with the blocks was a Jacob's ladder, and I know a lot of people would know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, there.
So, the decisions to make changes in the museum that have happened recently, and through the time of the museum since you've been here, how do you feel that the larger community has impacted the goals and the direction of the museum?
That's a good question, because not many changes were made for many years because we didn't have the people to make the changes, and we didn't have an assessment of what we needed. We didn't have time to do that. And it's something we're working on very diligently right now, and I'm very pleased about how it's going. But at the time, we were so short-handed, and we weren't all professional museum people. And that makes a big difference because you don't realize exactly what goes into making the museum meaningful to that community until you start studying it like we are now. And it's really, I think, had a big impact on everybody working here, and I find we all are working together as a good unit, and that makes me feel real good. I really do.
So how has the museum impacted your life?
Well, my husband passed away in 2007. And I find if I don't get here to work at least 2 days a week, I get down because I meet all the people here. I have something that's purposeful in my life, and I'm seeing things coming to fruition. And that makes me feel real good. But I've always liked detail work, and I always feel like anything that has to do with books and pictures and things that have to do with one particular area has got to be a good situation to present to the public. I really do.
And how has it impacted the way that you understand Sanford?
I find the people are so friendly and so happy to know that we treasure them and their city as something very worthwhile, and has been very, very, very instrumentally with the sending things from Jacksonville, the transportation, the steamships, all here, and then it's disseminated out along the coast, the East Coast, the West Coast of Florida, and it's been very interesting for me to learn about it, and they, I think, are proud that we are studying this and keeping track of all the pictures and everything so that we can look back and see it. And General Sanford, he lived right here in Florida, right at the top of the hill here for many years, and he has a real connection to this city. And I have been amazed at how many people have visited his grave up in Connecticut. And we have pictures of that downstairs on the Sanford bulletin board, right outside the office. And the man came and brought me the pictures all in a CD, and I made copies of them with his permission, and I thought it was very exciting. And then when people come in and see it, they say, oh, that's new, you know. And I said, yeah, we got those by him giving them to us, and it was wonderful. Yeah.
Okay. So, kind of moving in a different direction, you've worked here for quite a while, and you've seen tons of people come and go. Who do you think was the most memorable person to you that's come and visited the museum?
Well, I think Mr. Douglas Stenstrom, who was born here in 1921, and he passed away in 2010. He was a fantastic person, and he was in the World War II in the South Pacific. He attended the University of Florida, the University of Virginia, Stetson College. He was a county judge. He was a state senator. And he did many more things than that. And he would come and sit and talk with us when we had an event. And he'd sit for an hour or two. And when he left, he always left a check for us to put into the bank for keeping this place going, because he was very attached to it. Both he and his wife. And they were lovely people. And with all that education and everything, he always found time to stop by, and we just really delighted in him. And I think everybody did, because you couldn't walk by him without saying something to him, because everybody knew him. Yeah, it was wonderful. He was a wonderful man. Plus he has a school named after him out in Oviedo, Stenstrom Elementary. Yeah. Yeah, very generous gentleman.
So, kind of moving away from that, do you have any people in mind that might have gone to the school here that we could contact for future projects at the museum?
Well, to tell you the truth, Jesse, I gave a whole list of them to Dr. Byler, and they are a lot of the people, the Stiffies, and they are local people that have been here for years and donated their time in many schools and for many activities. And then there's Bill Robinson. He's a local person that lives here, and he is just as friendly and happy a man as I've ever known. And he went to school here, and his picture's down on one of the bulletin boards downstairs. Plus, there's a number of other ones, but I can't remember them all, but I did give her a long list of them and phone numbers and how to get a hold of them.
That's good news.
In fact, you can get the list if you're interested from her, I'm sure.
Do you have any ideas for spreading the word about the History Harvest?
Well, I think one of the best ways we could do it is to get the Orlando Sentinel columnists. There's, I think, a Kay Richardson or something. I can't remember her name, but there's several columnists that do stories on this, and also the Sanford Herald. And if they would do a piece on it and tell them we're looking for people to bring in things for this History Harvest, I think it would get out real quick that way, because most people take that Sanford Herald, and if they don't get the Orlando Sentinel, I know friends do, and they pass it around the neighborhood. But I'm sure there would be a lot of people that would be interested in it if they explained what it was and what they want to do. I think it would be great. And I'm excited about it. I really think it'll be great.
Well, thank you for doing the interview. I think that's all the questions I have. Is
You're
there anything
quite
that you
welcome.
wanted to say, that you wanted to
No,
add
I'm
on?
just so happy with the partnership that we have. The people that are coming to work and help are so good, and they are doing a tremendous job. And it makes me feel so good that it's going to be carried on for years to come. Really.
Right.
Yeah, I really am.
Again, thank you for doing the interview.
You're quite welcome.